All right, good morning, everybody. This is Gary Cassady, the host of Ask the Expert Show. Today, I've got an extremely special guest, legendary Serena Brown Travis. She's I can't even talk this morning. She's the go-to person for Les Brown Enterprises. She has her own business called 614 Kitchen, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Some of the great things she's doing there, and she's a best-selling author as well. So we're going to bring Serena on. Serena, how are you doing?
Hey, all is well. How are you?
I am wonderful. So
That's
thank you
good
for
to
being on the
hear.
show today.
So listen, I owe you, and I think you made a mistake. You said I'm legendary. I'm just small pennies, honey. I
No,
appreciate
you're legendary. You're the pulpit chick, right? You got
this is
a
true.
kitchen, the 604 Good Kitchen.
This is
You're the
true.
daughter of the legendary Les Brown. I mean,
This is
you're all
true.
over the place.
I'm all over the place. Well, my father says, "Live full and die empty." So I'm making sure that when I die, that I don't have not near a ghost standing around me saying, "What happened?"
That's awesome. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about you and what now you're in Columbus, Ohio, right?
It's true. Yes.
Yeah.
So as you introduced me, my name is Serena Brown Travis. I'm the youngest daughter of the legendary motivational speaker Les Brown. And for the past I'll be 40 this year. Not that you asked, but I am a little happy and excited about
I
that.
wasn't going to get to that part.
Right. So, but what I do is, of course, with my father's business, all of our lives, we went from city to city, state to state, to travel, to try to encourage people, motivate people, spread positivity, so on and so forth. During that time, you would think that ideally, since I'm around, positive energy all the time, that I would not have suffered my own setbacks and, have suffered from depression and low self-esteem. However, quite the contrary happened. And so, therefore, I was in a phase of my life where it was hard to get out of the bed. It was hard to see anything good about myself. Now, I was able to always put on a good face when it was time for us to hit the road and to be on the stage and to facilitate certain trainings, but I actually did not do the work for myself. And so I went through a phase that it was just a awful dark period of my life. And then, of course, when God is trying to get your attention, he disrupts everything around you. And so therefore, once everything started to become unraveled and so on and so forth, I end up, I believe, stepping into my purpose and taking my pain and repurposing it for a greater good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, you did mention your father. We'll get to him maybe in a little bit, but
Sure.
I mean, you're doing a lot of wonderful things just right now in Columbus, Ohio. And I know you've written books. Can you tell us about some of your books that you've written?
Certainly. So I started off writing children's books. It was a series called Perfect Penny, Positive Words Only. And what I found was that when I was going through my season of figuring out what happened to me and what was wrong, I realized it was from a series of bad words, negative words. And so I decided for myself that I was going to eliminate anything negative from my life. And it starts with positive words only. And so when I did the children's series, I wanted to make sure that I found books. I have two children, two daughters at the time, and I still have them, but of course they were younger. And so I was reading children's books, but I did not find any books that had situations where children overcame adversity, that had situations where maybe mom wasn't home, dad was out, and and maybe they lived with grandma. And so I wanted to create a series of books that had real life issues for, unfortunately, a lot of children. We expect, children are to be happy and healthy and strong and smart. But we never consider some of the adversity that they go through. We don't think of what it does to a child when someone says, "Oh, they just bad." They're bad. Those types of things that people just casually speak over children. Well, that has an impact on them. And so I wanted to be sure that I was creating a series that would try to penetrate through that, so that therefore if a child did have an adverse situation, they could read my book and see themselves on the pages and go, this is me. And oh my goodness, there's hope and there's a way out. And I can change my mindset even if you're 5, 6, or 7 years old. So that is the purpose of the books. And we created 5 of them. And so I'm so grateful that message was given to me, and grateful that it's done such a good job in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I can kind of relate a little bit to that, and with children and so forth. I mean, my upbringing as well, but you know, uh, even in my own family, where we've had some of the stuff that you hit, where like young children were maybe talked upon a certain way and so forth, where like this book could have like really reached out and meant to them. So
Right.
yeah,
Yes, and again, no one ever realizes it almost it's all. We've all gone to family reunions. Oh, hey, big head, look at you. It's always something, and so unfortunately,
yeah,
negative comments are almost a term of endearment. And so
yep,
for me, I said, you know what, we're not doing this anymore because
yep,
it just slightly creeps in, and then all of a sudden, someone's called you big head 2 weeks ago, and here you are still looking in the mirror trying to figure out if your head is big. And so it's
yep.
just, and of course, that's a mild example, but nonetheless, I decided no more. It was not going to happen to me anymore. I was not going to allow it to happen to my children anymore. And in fact, I wanted to do something about it on a larger basis. And so that's what we did.
That's all. Absolutely, that's awesome. Yeah. Where can people find these books at, Serena?
So they're on Amazon, and so that's one of the easiest portals that we're fortunate enough. All of the independent authors are fortunate enough to use. And so you can just go to Amazon.com, type in Serena Brown Travis or Perfect Penny series, and it'll pop right up for you.
It'll pop right up. And there's a series of 5, you said?
There is a series of 5. A few of them I have not released yet, so we're just waiting for the right time to do so. But you'll at least find 3 of them.
Oh, can we release one on the? No, I'm just kidding. You got like a big announcement? No,
right.
Yeah, that was totally unplanned. So
it's all good.
Yeah. So yeah, that is awesome. So check out her series on Amazon on the children's book, especially if you know somebody that has a child. I've recently experienced what I would call a bully scenario with my own son, and it wasn't nothing big, but it made him sit back and think like, wow, not all kids are really nice,
Right, and and don't discount that. That is a big deal,
Yeah.
Fortunately, we create as parents, we create a nice cushion, a nice bubble for our children, and then when something disrupts the pattern of what we were teaching them, it becomes unfortunate. Because, in fact, just recently, my daughter at our restaurant, my daughter, who's 16 years old, was called a derogatory name. Now, as adults, we might be a little desensitized to it. Unfortunately for her, she was upset. She was crying hysterically. She really couldn't halfway get through the rest of the day. And so, so of course she's like, oh, well, why don't she just get over it? She's never been called a name before. Us parents, we've done a good job making sure that we've had her fully empowered and that she knows she's beautiful and she's strong and she's smart. On top of it, we've also taught her to respect adults. So then when adults violate that rule, when other kids violate the rules that we say, because we say, hey, play nice and everyone's equal and we love everyone, and then all of a sudden someone violates that by bullying or calling names or hitting, that's a big deal. So as parents, we're all in this thing together, because my hope is that when my children play with your children, they're sharing about the same principles, Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it becomes devastating when our children experience something totally different.
Yeah. Oh, it did make me feel good as a parent.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I wanted to protect my son more,
As a parent, you want to go find the other parents and let them know how you feel. So I get it.
Yeah. So, okay. So now, you're around like with your father and so forth with this, positive attitude around. I mean, he's been on stage with, hundreds of thousands of people. What is it that, you've noticed, because you've been around a lot of successful people, getting to that next level? What is that for like you, and what do you see like with your dad and the other successful people that you guys have mentored and trained over the years?
One of the big things I see is consistency. And the other thing that I see is that people have never, the people I've been around who have been largely successful in their careers, they never gave up. And so, consistency, most of all of us struggle with that. At the beginning of the year, everyone has a weight loss goal. By January 10th, we're like, it's whatever. I'm happy with the way God made me, we find every excuse. But what I find is that the people who have really pushed through and persevered and are at the top of their careers, it's because they've been consistent. And also, I used to laugh at my father for this, but now it makes perfect sense. He said, make no your vitamin. So every time that someone tells you no, and everyone that someone slams the door in your face, just make no your vitamin. Usually, most of us are so devastated by the no. Most of us, go back and we get back in the bed and we cry and we tell other people they told me no. Well, that one we've given that one person or that two persons too much power over our lives. If we decide to make no our vitamin, then no pushes us closer to a yes. And so that's what I mean by consistency and never giving up and persevering in spite of. And so when I look at all the people that I've been around who have been hugely successful, it is about two of those principles that I've watched. I'm like, man, you're unstoppable because you've made no your vitamin, and that sounds crazy.
That sounds.
My dad says it all the time. He says, make no your vitamin, and that way you're not deeply affected by it. And so that's what I noticed. That's
awesome. That's great. So, I mean, again, like, just keep going. I can relate back, even like with mentors and so forth, going back in my school days, I had a learning disability, and, I had people call me, like I was in a special class for this, and I was ashamed of it, and I didn't really talk about it, and I tried to hide it. And it wasn't until I actually got out and got on a stage one time and told my story of having a learning disability, my writing and my math. It was just school was bad for me.
Right.
And so, but my mentors at the time, I didn't realize they were mentors, but they were like my coaches, and they pushed me through the nose. And, if you fall and you get back up, things of that nature. One of our sayings was never give up, never give up, never give up.
Right.
And it was constantly keep going. And that's kind of some of the same models I live by today. So,
yeah. And kudos to you. And thank goodness that you had some great coaches and mentors around you. One of the things that I've also learned is that God will use everything that you're trying to bury. And so you mentioned that you were on stage and all of a sudden you went ahead and you started to share a part of your story, a part of your life. And so what I found now is that everything that I was trying to bury, everything uncomfortable about my story, everything that I was ideally embarrassed about, how am I, the daughter of the legendary motivational speaker, Les Brown, suffering from depression? That makes no sense. I could be seen as the weak link of the family. And so, but what I did was I decided to make my pain my purpose. And same thing with you. You decided to take an embarrassing part of your story and turn it into testimony. And so again, thank God for what you do and who you are and how you show up in the world. So you did exactly what you were supposed to do. And that is
Well, the amazing thing about that one story is, actually, let me back up, is your father helped me bring that story out because he has a similar story with the learning disability.
Absolutely.
And I just listened to a video of his probably the day before, and he was talking about the same thing. But when I stood up and on that stage, I had people coming up to me afterwards, and one guy, he was so touched by my story, he said, "Can you talk to my son?" Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why me? I didn't understand why. And here his son had some of the same issues that I had, and was potentially starting to get bullied in school and just struggling in school and is getting ready to try to drop out. And his son, I agreed to have like a lunch with his son, and we still kind of communicate to this day. And that's been 4 or 5 years ago. And, he graduated from high school. And so that there to me that's more important to me than just getting up on the stage and tell story. Was that one individual,
Listen, the goal is to change lives. And so thankfully, not only did you help impact the father who was, thank goodness, wise enough to know, let me get someone else in here to, help penetrate and give my son a different perspective about life. But you also helped to change his life and the lives of those around him, because all of a sudden, I'm sure he saw more possibilities than he saw problems. And so thank God for you, your voice, your purpose, and how you're showing up.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for that. I think you're turning the show around on me here.
Right. Well, I have another question for you. I'm just kidding.
No, you're good. You're good. So, what's it like being an entrepreneur for yourself? Like, you've had multiple business, I believe, and so forth, and you're running multiple organizations. So how do you do what you do? Because I mean, you got many hats you're wearing right now, and how do you stay on the top? I mean, you're on the pulpit, you're doing the kitchen stuff. I mean, and you're helping your dad's business out. Like, so how does all that revolve?
You know what? It is clearly divine intervention. If you told me that I would be on the pulpit at any point in my life, I would have laughed hysterically. Okay. And so I think that there are certain things that, we choose to do. We have ideas for ourselves, and then God says, oh yeah, that's cute. And then you let me know when you're ready to step aside and let me use you. So therefore, the pulpit, that is, let me just say this. Ideally, when someone feels a call or something from God, ideally you would go, oh yes, choose me. Well, that was not my story. Okay, it made me nervous at the idea of God trying to use me. I certainly was better, I felt, in the back of the room supporting my father, being the secretary, taking care of paperwork. And so I did not want any part of what he was doing. I felt like I was a better support person. But what I realized is that I told myself that I was better in the back of the room. I was okay with being secondary. And so that's what a lot of us do. A lot of us feel a call. A lot of us, have a dream or a desire that we know has been deposited in us. We can daydream about it. It feels good to think about it. But when it comes to actual implementation, all of a sudden we talk ourselves out of it. All of a sudden we tell ourselves we're not qualified. So when I felt the call from the divine, from God, I was thought, no, you've got the wrong one. Matter of fact, God, I'll suggest some other people for you, but it's not me. And so, of course, as we know, your arms are too short to box with God. So he just had to sit on me and throw his weight around and get what he needed to get out of me to help me realize that I needed to step into a new dimension. So that's one component of myself. My husband and I, we love to cook. So as a result of that, years ago, we purchased a food trailer. And so we called it the Rolling Kitchen. The other name that we also called it was the Ugly Black Truck. And the reason why is that it is actually really, really ugly. In fact, if you come, it's ugly. We had a customer who said, hey, I'm over here. My friend told me to come outside and get food from this ugly black truck. Then she looked up and she said, okay, yeah, I'm at the right place. And so I thought it was great. Yeah, I thought it was great. Of course, all of a sudden she realized, oh my goodness, did I just say that out loud? I'm so embarrassed. And I said, ma'am, it's perfect. What that taught me is to make your weaknesses your strength. So as a result of us being the Rolling Kitchen and this lady called us the Ugly Black Truck, then I started naming ourselves the Ugly Black Truck. And so, so people know us as both names. But from the Ugly Black Truck or the Rolling Kitchen, which again was a 10 by 10 small trailer that we would haul around with a pickup truck, my husband stumbled upon a brick and mortar building. And so thankfully, and we know a restaurant is a hard industry to get into, especially to be successful. And so thankfully, we're a year and a half into it. Things have been going extremely well. And I can't say that it's all of us and our skills and our cooking. Of course, we're still thriving during a pandemic, and I cannot take credit for that. I do have to thank God for how he has blessed us and protected us and still provided for us. And even when things were going bad, even when we were in the middle of a pandemic, we decided to put our faith where our fear was. And so we decided to give meals away to the local children. We decided to give meals away to the senior citizens within the community, because I'm not sure how everyone else's city worked, but here in the city of Columbus, Ohio, things were shut down pretty quickly. Yeah. There was no room to, try to figure it out. I mean, we had curfews and things like that. But what I wanted to do was to take our small building right where we were, in an urban area, surrounded by children and seniors, and try to be a blessing to the community. And so I say all of that to even encourage you, is that use what you have right where you are. We were, because of what we did in March, again, we didn't necessarily have the money to do it. We couldn't afford to do it. We also couldn't afford not to do it. It was more important that even if we went out of business because we were trying to help other people, I would have been okay with that. But because of how God showed up and protected us and created a shield around us, of course, we had people who did nothing but like and share our page, then that inadvertently brought us more business. And that was the side effect of doing something so selfless to be a part of the community. And so even now, we still continue to do it. And so I would encourage you that even when your blessings start showing up, don't forget what you used to do to get there. And so with that being said, on Tuesday, I get in my car and I deliver meals to at least 20 or 30 senior citizens, and we give out food on our way to individuals' homes. So I'm so grateful to do that as well. And so then on top of that, being an author. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that I do. Yeah. And I'm just so glad and grateful for all the talents that have been deposited in me. I would, again, also encourage you and your viewers is that don't get stuck on just doing one thing. You know, when we were kids, someone would say, oh, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, when we were kids, we were like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a teacher. Our ideas were all over the place. Am I telling you?
Oh, yeah, they were.
Yeah. And so even now, don't limit yourself to what society thinks you should do. Don't limit yourself to what your degree told you should be doing. There are other things beyond the scope of what you don't even have an idea of what you can possibly do. And so never get stuck in just one field and not think that you can't be used in other components of your life.
That's awesome. No, I want to back up just a second. You're giving away your food from your restaurant.
That is correct. That is correct. And we're giving away not just, here's what I grew up with. And I appreciate my mother for doing this. When I was younger at my church, there would be if you remember the summer lunch program. And so at the summer lunch program, unfortunately, sometime, they would have bologna and cheese or ham and cheese. And I would find that there would be mold on the bread or, maybe something discolored on the cheese. Now, because I was a member of the church, I had a separate meal that was in the kitchen because I was, I go to church and maybe someone was nice enough to pick me up something along the way. I went home and I told my mother that, and she was furious. And she said, let me tell you something. Don't ever have a meal for you and a meal for someone else. If you wouldn't eat it, then don't ever serve it. And so now, unfortunately, the older people at my church didn't know that I was finding mold. So I had to go back and tell, the older people, hey, there's mold. Of course, they were upset. So they ended up, giving everyone the exact same meal. But that stuck with me. So when I serve our meals, we don't serve a secondary meal. We don't serve something that we wouldn't eat ourselves. We don't go and try to find off-brand products and, imitation cheese to make it pass. We actually serve the exact same thing that if you wanted to buy it, you could buy it. But because I wanted to make sure we put our faith where our fear was, we give the exact same thing. And also because if anything else during this pandemic, I would want someone to think, you know what, that was some good spaghetti that the Good Kitchen 614. Or do you remember when we were on shutdown? But do you remember that chicken from the Good Kitchen?
There you go.
I want to make sure that even in a tough season, that the Good Kitchen 614 is being a blessing and providing our services to the community who needs it. And so again, I encourage you to be a blessing right where you are. You don't have to look for anything big to do. Literally, what you need to do is right at your fingertips. It's all, when God said to Adam,
use your resources.
Use your resources.
Whatever you have
all
right now.
Right there. All right there. And so, so we give away our food. And I believe that service is the rent that we pay here on earth. And that was a quote by Mother Teresa, but it absolutely makes perfect sense.
Yeah. On the food, this is totally off here. Mm-hmm. Are you guys open to taking donations?
We are. In fact, I appreciate that question. We initially, started off by just doing it ourselves. And then we had a lot of people from the neighborhood to say, hey, I'm nervous during this pandemic, but I want to find a way to help. And so they said, here, please take $5, $10. And so thankfully, I didn't even think about that at the time. We did open ourselves up to take donations. If you would like to donate, we're on Cash App at the Good Kitchen 614. You'll see our logo pop up. And so, we gladly still accept donations. And I'm so grateful for that question. And what I found is that people, as nervous and scared as all of us have been over the past several months, we also still wanted to find a way to be a blessing and to give to other people. And so I don't expect you, Gary, to come out and cook, but anything that you could give to help the cause has, it's been a blessing.
Yeah.
We've had.
So you saying I'm not a good cook?
Oh,
I'm kidding.
No, we absolutely accept donations, and we're so grateful when we do receive them, because we continue to make sure that it gets out to the right place.
Well, I think that's an awesome thing that you're doing, and so that's actually very touching to me. So not too many. I know a lot of business owners that are restaurant owners, and I know a lot of them are struggling right now. So, what was the Cash App again?
It's the Good Kitchen 614. So once you type that in, it should pop up, and so hopefully it will pop up. Yes.
So this was unplanned, so I didn't know this was going to go that way. But if on the Cash App, check it out, and if you can give $5 or $10, whatever it would be, I mean, anybody, definitely help out. So
absolutely, and we appreciate all of it. So thank you so much for, like you said, this wasn't planned, but I appreciate you asking. And that again, that's true servant. How can I help? How can I serve? And we know that the greatest among you will be your servant. So therefore, that's why we've positioned ourselves to make sure we serve. And again, Gary, I appreciate you for what you do, and as you're serving so much knowledge.
I think I lost it.
Uh-oh. Am I here? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you're there now.
Okay, perfect. But I was saying the greatest among you would be your servant. And so we wanted to position ourselves to be servants in the community. And again, I appreciate what you do to serve, good information, positivity, and so on and so forth to your audience. So I appreciate everything that you're doing here today.
Yeah. I got one or two more questions if we got time.
Sure, go for it.
Yeah. One of the questions I always ask, like business owners, and how did they get started? Did they have a mentor at the very beginning? Because there's a lot of people don't understand the struggles of starting up your own business or becoming successful. And so what was that like at the very beginning for you guys? How did you get over the hump to get to where you're at now?
Right. Well, I will first say that there was no mentor. We started by when we would cook at home. All of a sudden, we used to notice that a lot of people would come to our house to eat. We thought it was because everyone wanted to spend quality time together. But then we later found out, oh, no, we come to your house because you have the best food. So I'm like, you guys are exploiting us, So we started that way. And then it just slowly but surely trickled, down the line to doing maybe little league football games or a funeral or a repast and so on and so forth. And then when we bought the food trailer, there were no mentors whatsoever. Again, I had to bump my head several times. And that's why I even tell people, reach out to someone to figure it out. I don't camp. However, buying a food trailer, I had to learn camping. I had to learn propane tanks, and it was, oh my goodness, it was awful. I could go on and on and on about how many times I hit my head against the wall. And let's not even mention getting approval from the health department. So a lot of times, my father says, leap and grow your wings on the way down. That's exactly what I did. I would encourage you or anyone else who's listening, just reach out to someone and ask for help. I think for me, everything was moving so quickly, and I did not have anyone to ask. I didn't know anyone who went into a food truck industry or the trailer industry or any of those things. So I had to just learn it organically. And so, but even if you do that, that's great, because there are some things that I've learned organically that when I talk to individuals who have gone to culinary school and things like that they have no idea. And I'm like, oh, so I say that to say, never be ashamed of your small beginnings, because I would have never thought that, from a food truck to now a carry out restaurant, that I would still need those same skills and talents. But you best believe I still need those same skills and talents to quickly cook, kick food out. From a food truck, no one's trying to stand around 15 or 20 minutes to wait for a hot dog. So, we had to move at lightning speed, okay? Yeah. And that's the same thing we do now with our carry-out restaurant. So, no, there were no mentors, but the only thing that kept resonating within me is that yes, I can, and yes, I will, which is something that my father has said for years now. And I knew that if I was going to make it successful, that I knew I had to, keep myself empowered and motivated, that this was indeed possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, because again, people don't realize like there's a lot of struggles being a business owner,
Oh my goodness,
and
struggles are
you got the health department and everything else, and so you got a lot of other stuff to worry about.
Yes, and not only the health department, then the opinions of other people.
Yeah,
the internet has made it so that if you don't like something, instead of being courteous enough to go to the business owner to say, "Hey, this could have been a little different," all of a sudden everyone's an expert and everyone likes to get online and drag down every component of a business. So yes, not only satisfying the health department, but satisfying our customers and keeping a good relationship and making sure that the product we serve was excellent each and every day. I often tell people with the food industry, I can never have a bad day at work. I can never walk in the doors and say, I'm not feeling it today. No, I've got to feel it each and every day that we show up and make this thing happen. So there are no days off. It is a lot of work. You're going to hit your head against the wall. You're going to be nervous. You're going to burn yourself. You're going to cut yourself. But these are all good bruises that got me where I am right now.
Yeah, awesome. So one last question here,
Sure.
and it's kind of maybe a two-part question, but dealing with all like the coronavirus and the pandemic, stuff going on right now, and just business in general, being so motivated, being the daughter of Les Brown, like what is your last parting words to keep people going and with all the stuff that's going on right now? What is that like?
Sure. Well, what I'll say is this: when things go wrong, don't go with them. It's that simple. When things go wrong, don't go with them. So as a business owner, as an individual, when everything around you seems to be chaotic, when every building seems to be on fire, you have to find the still small voice within to remain calm, to try to figure out what your new angle is. I remember I read this article on Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. And as we know, one of their logos or one of their taglines is "It's finger licking good." Well, guess who's not licking fingers anymore? No one. If you're trying to avoid the coronavirus, okay?
That's so true.
Yeah. So at this point, as an individual and a business owner, you've got to be ready to pivot at any time. Again, when things go wrong, don't go with them. So I'm sure the executives at KFC thought, "Man, that was a great tagline." Not anymore. And they had to change it and make adjustments to still make sure they brought people in. And so I say that to you as an individual, as a business owner, as a mother, as a father, as parents in this whole thing, is we're trying to figure out what to do for our children and school and so on and so forth. When things go wrong, don't go with them. Figure out what you have within. Figure out how to think your way out of this situation. Figure out how to be a blessing in spite of what's going on, so that therefore we're not losing our hair. Because it's been a scary time. But if we did not have ourselves anchored, then we would be flying around, aimlessly trying to figure life out. And so figure out what your anchor is. Get strong in your beliefs. Know where you're going. Know where you want to go. And when things go wrong, don't go with them.
Those are awesome words. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, one last thing. What was that Cash App again? I that's really impressed me so much that I want to try to drive as many people to donate as possible.
I appreciate you.
$5 could go a long way for a restaurant to provide meals for people. So
right. Well, let me first say is that again, I'm grateful that I've been used as a vessel from God. I don't want to scare people by talking about the divine too much, but I certainly don't want to take credit for what we're doing. This is certainly an act of God just trying to intercede on our behalf and still being a blessing. And so again, the Cash App feed is the Good Kitchen 614. Good Kitchen 614. So the Good Kitchen 614. You can find it on Cash App. And again, I appreciate you. And we never even talked about plugging the restaurant or anything like that. But
you touched me on this, and so I just feel it's important for some reason to keep bringing it up for people. Right. If you even only get one or two people to donate, I mean, it's better than nothing. So. I think it's a great thing that you guys are actually giving away food to people in need. So
listen, we're great, and it has really been gratifying and satisfying for us because, like I said, Sales certainly went low. You know, people were just as afraid as we were. But again, when you put your faith where your fear is, and that's in any business, when you put your faith where your fear is, I mean, miraculously, something will happen to help turn the situation around. And that's exactly what happened to us. It was a byproduct for us to announce on Facebook that we are giving away meals to children and the elderly. And again, people were liking and sharing it. And so I could not have asked for a better situation. Again, we are the Good Kitchen 614, and that is our Cash App feed. But again, I appreciate you, and I'm just so grateful to be used by God to be, you know, to make an impact on the community. Yeah,
that's awesome. I really appreciate it. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
You are legendary. So.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I really do.
Absolutely. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Serena, thank you for being on the show. Again, thank you, guys, and we'll see you next Monday.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Bye now.